So, the leg bag, what is it? It's literally what it says on the tin. It's a bag that straps to your leg. The idea was the Germans are some of the first sort of proper modern army to do airborne tactics. And we certainly, along with a lot of nations, were copying basically what they did. If you look at pictures of early British airborne paratroopers, very early ones, they wear a slip-in suit with the short style topped. They have even side-lace boots, just like the Fallschirmjäger, so it's like the Fallschirmjäger jumpsuit, it's like the Fallschirmjäger boots. And the other thing they did is, if you ever look at Fallschirmjäger early German paras, is they would drop without their equipment. Their weapons and equipment would be in drop containers that would drop with them, but when they landed they would have to go and locate it to get their equipment. All the Fallschirmjäger generally jumped with is they would have a special holster for a Luger or something like that that would have a pocket in the back of their jumpsuit, and they would have a pistol when they landed, that's it. And we copied the same thing, and our early paratrooper tactics were exactly the same. Land, find your equipment. Just like the Germans found this isn't a great idea if you're landing behind the lines and you're going to need your weapon straight away, or any of your equipment. So, seeing as we were doing the same, dropping them in parachute containers and wicker baskets, landing, going to find them, about 41, 42 seems to be the most likely, is they come up with this idea. So this idea, a leg bag, it's a kit bag. It's just a large kit bag that you strap to your leg. The idea is you jump out the plane with it strapped to your leg, your parachute opens, and then once your parachute's open, you can pull a quick release, which is this string here, which releases these straps which are around your leg. And then once the straps have been released off, the bag is suspended by this, which is about a 20-foot rope. It goes out of this pouch, and it's between 15 and 20 feet. It seems to be the most common measurement. This is attached to your harness or around your belt. It now dangles away from you. It hits the ground first. You land, you've got all your equipment. It's also solved another problem with the amount of equipment paratroopers are having to carry. If you've got all that weight on them, when they hit the ground, their ankles, their legs, their knees are taking all of that extra force provided by the weight, and there's a lot more injuries. This hits the ground first on its own. It's got a big thick padded base. It's going to be fine. And at least the paratroopers have got less chance of breaking their ankles or damaging their back or anything. So, the bad reputation comes from, and it is slightly deserved, but not for the reasons you might think. You may know these, you may not have even realised they're a British piece of equipment. You will have known these from things like Band of Brothers, because the American Airborne for D-Day, June 6, 44, were issued these. The problem was they were issued it on the eve of D-Day. They just turned up, there was no training with them, they weren't shown how to attach them properly, and one of the most important things is they weren't told how much equipment to put in them. You can't just fill this to the brim with as much as it can take, because this rope is going to be suspending it from you. So generally the British ones, if you ever see pictures of them, the top's fairly floppy, they don't have a lot of stuff sticking out and like this. You can see that they've been loaded to a capacity, to a weight, which the most common I seem to find is around 50 pounds, which is heavy enough. The average Americans were loading them between 80 and 100 pounds, way over. And a lot of them continue to wear their equipment. They use this to carry extra equipment. Now those, like the infamous one, famous one should say, sorry, is Dick Winters from Easy Company, obviously portrayed in Band of Brothers. He's flew off on D-Day and he landed with no equipment. He had no webbing, he had nothing. I don't even think he had a knife, but he didn't have a pistol, he didn't have his rifle, none of his equipment. And lots of Americans were like that. And these have got a reputation for being an absolute waste of time, and potentially killing a lot of paratroopers by their equipment now having flown off. And like Winter says, he watched his go behind some tree line far away from where he was landing. It was never seen again. But when you start looking into it, the British had been using them during their invasions of Sicily and Italy with their airborne, and hadn't lost very many of them. In fact, they were fairly liked, apart from being cumbersome. Now, we also used them on D-Day, and the British paratroopers didn't experience many losses either. So why were the Americans losing them all and we weren't? A few reasons. One, like I've said, we weren't overloading them generally. The Americans were doubling the weight quite often. We had trained with them and done operational jumps with them. Americans hadn't. The most important one, well, Third, we'll come back to the important one. The third one is also the American planes hit a lot more flak than the British planes did on the way over for D-Day. So they were flying too fast as they were trying to get out of the way of the flak. So that means the paratroopers were jumping too quick. The prop blast that jerks their chute open and ripped these off, that's another reason. Planes going too quick. The main reason is a lot simpler than you might think. The British use X-type parachutes, the Americans use T5 parachutes. The British X-type parachute, as you jump out the plane and the static line opens your chute, the lines fully extend from your parachute, and then once the lines are extended, the canopy opens. The Americans use the T5 chute. As the static line opens the chute, the parachute deploys and opens and pulls the lines tight. It's the opposite of how the British ones jump. So as the British paratroopers jump, the weight's not such a problem because it extends those lines and then opens the chute, so you get a smooth jump. The Americans using T5s is you get a jerk as that parachute pulls you tight, if you like. Well, if you combine that with having up to £100 strapped to your leg and that force, it rips the straps off, it will rip the rope off, the leg bag will just go flying. So the design of it, where's it sort of come from? I found quite a bit of evidence to suggest that the designer noticed that at train stations, soldiers would have their kit bags, because that's all this is, and they would rest it on their foot as they're milling around talking to their friends or moving so that it goes with them. And they thought, well, troops are already used to putting them on their feet. And so he came up with this design. If you look on the bottom, it has a slot. That is for your foot. So it can sit flat on the floor, but you can now move that with your foot wherever it needs to go. It's just a shortened kit bag, that's all it is. It has a so-called quick release opening at the front, so that when you get there you could cut the ropes or pull the ropes and the whole bag falls open. You can get your equipment even quicker. This rope is attached to two D hoops at the top. That is what attaches it to your harness. It has a handle for carrying it around, and then this is an early one. It has a hoop that would attach around your belt or around your harness. Straps to your legs by these two straps, and you walk around as you're trying to get into the plane and manoeuvre in the aircraft with this on your leg. And there's some great footage of paratroopers trying to get in and out of C-47s with these things, and they're a nightmare because everybody, in the Americans especially, would check everybody's kit before you get onto the aircraft, so the leg bag has to be attached to your leg before you get onto the aircraft, rather than sometimes you'll see them throw them in and they obviously attach them while they're in the aircraft, but most of them attach them on the hard standing ready to get into the planes, and they're having 3 or 4 people to help them get up. Also shows how heavy the Americans had packed these things. The SAS used them. We have reports of Tonkin, for instance, when he went to the advance party with Lieutenant Crisp. We have reports of Captain Tonkin saying that he attached the rucksack to his leg, for instance, when he was in the aircraft, and then when the Halifax was over there, he had his last bit of coffee given to him by the crew and was then told to jump, and his rucksack dropped, and he had a fantastic jump. He had no problems. The leg bag dropped. He says once the chute opened, he released the rucksack, and he says he'd have barely, he doesn't think he'd have damaged an egg if he'd have landed on it. That's how these things are fine. They just have a bad reputation. Now, this particular one, for the group, found us. It was a friend of ours, certainly a friend and member of the group, used to make props. He made props for Band of Brothers, for instance. He made parachute bags, these kinds of things for Band of Brothers. He's retired now, but he still makes the odd thing. And a reenactor from a different group had requested some of these leg bags made. The early ones, I'll go through what makes it early in a minute. He wanted the early ones made, and for whatever reason never came to get this one and stopped answering messages and obviously didn't want it anymore. So I was offered it for a good price. People will remark, as I first did, on the colour. It is a pre-war canvas. If you look at see officers' beds, campaign chairs, things like that, they were this colour of canvas. Early ones, leg bags were sort of made out of anything before they were official, and this is a Mark 1. The other thing that makes it a Mark 1 is leather straps. You'll see all the leg bags have canvas straps, just like this thick webbing material the British are well known for using. This leg bag has leather straps. It has a basic rope hook rather than a metal quick release hook. You see ones with like almost a spring looking thing, that's a quick release. It's a butterfly clip to quick release them, because you'd have to kind of cut this depending on where it was attached, whereas the quick release, at least you could just pull it. There's a famous thing on Band of Brothers of Winters, when he lands, he holds up his quick release thing with a snapped bit of rope about there, and that's what that is. We've set this one up with 22 Mossberg just for effect. It's got all sorts of ammunition and stuff in there, and this is almost certainly how this rifle got into the VN. We identified this rifle as an unusual take by the SAS to take a 22 training rifle with them. It's probably for hunting. I think it's for hunting. I know everyone likes the story of an assassin, but more than likely taken for hunting. And this is probably how they got that rifle into the country, was having it in a leg bag, and it doesn't quite fit. You can see the M1 carbine fits in there quite nice, the muzzle sticking out. The Mossberg doesn't quite fit. So that is the leg bag, and that's its reputation and some of the stories behind it. The SAS used them. We have those written in the reports by Tonkin, and they have no problems. Although this is an early one, for D-Day they dragged all sorts out of the stores. There's paratroopers jumping under all sorts of colours of parachutes and all sorts of random bits of equipment, and it's because they needed to equip so many men. They dragged all sorts out of the stores, so these early ones could well have been used, and they would have been used. So it's still accurate enough, even in its bright colour. Hopefully that was of interest. Hopefully it's dispelled some of those rumours about bad British equipment that we dumped on the Americans and cost them their lives. There's lots more to it, as there always is with every story. There's two sides, and hopefully that's at least dispelled some of the myths and rumours about it. And it's nice to show it and have it with the collection. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, share, like, all that stuff. The channel's growing really well, and it's thanks to you lot. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one, and hopefully see you at a show for 2025.